Welcome to day number 6. It's amazing how fast these days are going by. I don't know if it is for you, but at least it is for me. So today, these 10 days are, at least my desire is, that they are building on one another. And even though they're building on one another, we're not directly connecting them to anyone except for today or until today. And that is that what we're going to be doing today directly connects to day 1, our very first day, our passions. And so if you haven't gone and watched that video and done the little exercise or the mini exercise that I had you do, then you'll want to do that first and then come back to day 6 because they directly connect or build on one another. So today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be refining those passions. And there's several reasons why, but what we're doing within the refining of those passions is we're finding where, not we are finding, but you want to find where you get the most personal fulfillment out of. Because I have a lot of passions, and I definitely at times have a broader sense of my passions than I do maybe either my bandwidth, or one of the things that we'll be talking about is getting into, once you have your passion and the excitement and that wears off, that's where the personal fulfillment comes in, because that is actually what's going to help sustain you. Because you can ask anybody who has been in any field for more than 6 months, there are days that you don't want to do what you do, no matter how passionate you are or how much you enjoy it in the moment or overall. There are going to be times, like you can ask my wife, there are times where I've said, you know what, babe, I'm done doing all this, and I think I'm just going to go get a job at Starbucks because that looks really appealing. And nothing against jobs at Starbucks. It's not for me, but it looks really appealing. And that's when I have to go back to, what is it that I get the most fulfillment out of? And if I pause and just connect with that, then it's inevitably, okay, long term, like Starbucks may look great right now, but long term, I know that I won't feel fulfilled in doing that as a career or a pathway. And so some examples for me is I have a Google document that has my client, like testimonies from my clients and emails that I get from people that have taken my course and different communication or like Facebook comments. I actually keep that kind of like prophetic words. I keep an archive of that because for me, it is one of, now it's not the only one, I'll touch base on one that feels like it's very different to give you an example, but one area that I get the most fulfillment out of is when I'm working with a client and I see that aha moment, or I get to work with them for a little while and then they come back and they go, or they write that email and say, you know, I was terrified of this, but now I'm actually doing the very thing that I was terrified of, or I actually feel fulfilled, or I didn't realize that I had these issues until we uncovered them, or whatever it is. Because I'm wired in a way that helping people discover their true identity and really come alive in that, that is a passion of mine. But then on top of that, I get personal fulfillment out of the feedback that I get from people. Now, this doesn't replace God's voice in my life, right? Because you can easily shift this into just getting fed strictly from people instead of God. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your soul, where you get the most fulfillment out of what you do within your passions. See, and another one that could feel completely disconnected or very different, that is in the realm of what I do, is business strategies. Like in the same way that I get a lot of fulfillment out of helping people realize who they're meant to be and scraping away the things that get in the way, I get that same kind of fulfillment, personal fulfillment, out of mapping out strategies for businesses. And it's specifically in one area is like email funnels. And I can geek out in that and get lost in that and have a lot of fun in that. But then once it's all built and kind of formed, to then see what was an idea or a concept or maybe even a hurdle for a business, to then see the answer or the solution running, like up and running, I get a ton of fulfillment out of seeing that happen, taking it from something that didn't exist to something that does exist and has a lot of strategy implemented into it. And so that is very, very, very different than it is over here of working directly with people or speaking to a crowd and then just seeing the eyes light up of, oh man, I never thought about that before. That's so empowering, or whatever it may be on this side. But then it's still, you could say that it's in a similar vein of helping people come alive, which businesses are nothing more than a series or a group of people that are servicing another people in some form or fashion. So it's in a similar vein, but I just wanted to give you an example out of my own life of it can look very different. It doesn't have to fit into, it doesn't even have to fit into entrepreneurialism. Like it could be for you, it could be, you know, my mom as an example, she's an English as a second language teacher for children. And she gets a ton of fulfillment and life from teaching. A lot of them are refugees that come and teaching them English. And for her, that, like, it has going to the same job, everything else, that would be mundane for me and I wouldn't get much fulfillment out of it. But she does. Like, she loves it and comes alive within that. And so what I want you to do is take your passions from day one and take a look at those, and not just off the cuff, you know, I have these 4 and I think I'd get the most fulfillment out of that. Actually spend some time with those passions that you wrote down. And maybe, you know, we're in day 6 now, and you've done some strengths and some different things that are hopefully giving you more clarity as to who you are for where you're at right now. It may be that back to day 1, it's actually maybe changed slightly. I'm not saying massively, but slightly. Or maybe you didn't think about one before and now you want to add it to that list of passions. Point being is you want to take a list of those passions that you had from day 1 and then ask yourself, if I were to do this, or maybe you're already starting to do it, where is it within the vein of that passion that I get the most fulfillment out of it? Because that's what you're going to need to be the fuel for your soul to get you through those days when you want to quit and give up. Doesn't matter if it's building a business or teaching kids English. Like, everybody has those days where they don't want to do it. And connecting your passion to personal fulfillment is what will actually carry you through those hard times, because you have a deeper understanding of why it is that you're in the vein that you're doing, and will continue to move you forward. So, oh, Marcy, I love that you're a part of this too. I've really had a ton of fun engaging with everybody and, you know, just working with people through this process. It's been a blast for me as well. So selfishly, thank you for engaging. And like I've said in other days, for being vulnerable and for sharing. And because a lot of these things are intimate things, you know, and it's a lot easier to just keep them internally and let them run around in your head or your heart, but not actually move forward in them. And so seeing people engage in those comments and just share with one another, and for you to put the things that are inside here out for others to see, it means the world to me. So as much as you say thank you to me, I say thank you to you. So personal fulfillment. Today, we're working on refining those passions into personal fulfillment. And so what I want you to do in the comments today is, out of that list from your passions, and you might even have to fine tune it within it. Because if you said in your passions, I absolutely love music. Well, what is it within music? And I'm not musical by any means, and so this doesn't pertain to me. But what is it within music that you get the most fulfillment out of when you engage with it? Doesn't mean that you do it for a career yet, but when you engage with it, you get a ton of personal fulfillment out of it. Like, I could say working with businesses, that I have a passion for that, and I do. Or running businesses, I have a passion for that as well. But what is it within that? See, for me, it's the strategy and implementing a strategy and seeing it actually that engine start to turn and work. It's that part. So I have no passion or personal fulfillment of coming into a very well-established corporation and just giving kind of ideas that may or may not get implemented. I love the early stage where you're still trying to figure it out. So take your passions, try to refine it down, and ask yourself, what is it within those that I feel most alive when I engage with them, but then also I get the most fulfillment out of when I do that? And put in the comments, what is it within those passions that you get the most fulfillment out of? And I really look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. Again, I'm still blown away by the vulnerability that you guys have with what you're sharing, and I look forward to seeing what those are. And then I'm actually really, really excited. Not that any day is more significant than the other, but I'm very excited for these last few days, because the last few days is when we're going to start to put some traction on all this stuff we're talking about. Like, all this stuff we're talking about is good, and getting clarity and understanding is awesome. But if all you do is stop there without putting any legs to it and doing something with it, then you're just idly sitting on the sidelines, still looking at the game getting played, wishing that you could play instead of jumping in. So these last few days, if you've made it this far, then I would encourage you to try to stretch through those last few days, because we're going to do a couple things that may actually be a little bit scary, because you're really locking in a commitment behind these things that you see and that you're finding in your heart. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and that's what we have for today. I hope you guys have a great, I was going to say weekend, but I'm doing this every day, so I will see you tomorrow on Sunday. But until then, I hope you have a great weekend.